And speaking with Congressman Halleck, Illinois Senator Everett Dirksen.
In the final analysis, it is President Kennedy's own mismanagement of his legislative program that has kept Congress in session since last January, and everybody in Washington knows it.
The Republican Senator from Illinois, Everett Dirksen. A plan to enter Wisconsin Republican Congressman John Burns as a favorite son candidate apparently has gone by the boards despite Burns' impassioned defense yesterday of his stock holdings in a Wisconsin mortgage company. Congressman Burns obtained favorable tax treatment for the company. The probable Republican candidate for Wisconsin governor and a Wisconsin Republican National Committeeman both say Burns is now likely to forego the favorite son role at next year's presidential convention. An accident on an American firing range in South Korea has claimed the lives of 9 Koreans, injured 9 others. A U.S. artillery unit fired an Honest John missile onto the range. Despite warnings, the Koreans ran out to collect scrap from the first warhead, and when a second Honest John burst among them, that's when the casualties happened. An historic communications link with Japan. That story now from Al Mann, ABC, in the Mojave Desert in California.
Today, a new era of communications opens between North America and Asia with the transmission of the first direct television pictures from the United States to Japan by way of the relay satellite. Today's transmission will be one-way only from the United States. A special message from President Kennedy to the Japanese people will be the feature part of the program. Not only will the picture span the Pacific, but it'll span time as well, crossing the international dateline to be seen live in Japan on Saturday morning, live in the United States on Friday afternoon. Al Mann, ABC, the Mojave Desert, California.
A series of rifle shots brought death to 5 members of one family early this morning in Truman, Arkansas. Police report that farmer Sammy Penter, apparently despondent, turned his gun on 4 members of his family, then killed himself. The shooting at Truman, Arkansas took place at a birthday celebration for Penter's 6-year-old stepdaughter. She was one of the victims. A lawyer for Teamster President Jimmy Hoffa says Hoffa had no knowledge of an attempt to bribe a prospective juror for Hoffa's trial. The disclaimer from Nashville attorney Z.T. Osborne, who was disbarred by a Nashville federal court for his alleged part in a jury fix attempt. The nation's weather, a study in contrast this morning. The north central states shivering under near zero temperatures. Snow has fallen in the belt from Montana to Nebraska. Meanwhile, the rest of the nation fairly basks in unseasonably warm temperatures. Early morning readings already in the 60s from the southwest as far north as Chicago. That's the latest on the weather on News Around the World. The wheat deal with the Soviets coming in for more criticism. This from Texas Republican Senator John Tower. He's against the deal, thinks the administration is keeping the truth about the deal from the American people. Says Senator Tower,
it might be too hard to accuse this administration of deliberately attempting to hoodwink the American people. But there can be no doubt that they have adopted an attitude of what they don't know won't hurt them. And the longer the people stay in the dark about what's going on in Washington, the longer they, the administration that is, can stay in power.
Disagreeing with Senator Tower, the Democratic Senator from Arkansas, William Fulbright.
It is clear that our virtual embargo on non-strategic trade with communist countries has become self-defeating. It does not deny the communist countries the goods which they wish to buy, but only assures that they will buy them from sources other than the United States.
Senator William Fulbright, chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee on the wheat deal. That's the morning wrap-up on News Around the World. This is Don Gardner, ABC News, New York. Goodbye, and I hope you have a good day.
It's 19 minutes to 8, and from Hotel Texas, here is Frank Mills with a 570 Mike Side report.
Good morning, everyone. For a few hours that began about 8 hours ago, Fort Worth is the capital of the United States of America. It's a singular occasion, for at the same time we have with us today the President and the Vice President of the United States. In the dark hours before dawn, the sky was lighted by the golden glow of the outline of the skyline of the city of Fort Worth, reflecting the warmth of the welcome for the President and the First Lady. Here in the hotel, there's an air of expectancy, almost a festival, party-like air. Almost all of the 2,000 guests have been seated. Most all of them already have been served. It has been going off just like clockwork this morning, We are located some 40 or 50 feet from the kitchen, through which the president and his party will make their entrance. Why the kitchen? Well, security reasons for one thing. Another, it is almost the direct route from the elevators to the ballroom and thence to the speaker's table. We arrived at 6 o'clock this morning, and already people were here gathering in the dark and in the rain from every vantage point that from where they could find a dry spot at least, to view the president. And of course, as the dry spots were taken up, then the people took to standing very patiently and quietly in the rain, awaiting the time when they could see the president. Of course, the kitchen force was here in force this morning, and I am sure long before we arrived, some very quick, simple arithmetic, something over 2,000 people to be served, and if they're going to have 2 eggs apiece, this is some 4,000 eggs that had to be broken and scrambled. And if we can project this a little further, I would imagine some 400 pounds of ham and over 200 gallons of coffee. So if you've been upset about making plans or overseeing a wedding reception or the club's annual Christmas party, you'll know what the force has been faced with here this morning. So the people are still assembling outside. For the public appearance the president will make in the parking lot directly across the street from the specially erected platform there. Because regardless of political persuasion, people are gathering for a real-life glimpse of the President of the United States. As one man said to me this morning as I walked among the crowd out there, after all, he is the President, and I got here early so I could get close enough to perhaps say, good morning, Mr. President, and welcome to Fort Worth. At various times during the morning, we will be interrupting the regular program schedule to bring you feature reports here from the Grand Ballroom, and also, of course, as the festivities, if we can call them that, and this is the air about the place, as they begin at approximately 8:45. That is the time the president is scheduled to address the people outside. We will bring you in its entirety the program here from the Grand Ballroom. So for the time being, this is Frank Mills returning you now to the studio.
570 WBAP, Fort Worth.
Get behind the wheel of a Campbell Oldsmobile at Bob Campbell's Western Olds.
You get the finest deal on a fine automobile at Bob Campbell's Western Oldsmobile.
Spirited and sportier than ever for 64. That's the all-new F-85 Cutlass by Oldsmobile, loaded with action. With just a flip of the wrist, you'll ease the optional Jetaway transmission into position for instant response. Yes, this is where the action is, the all-new F-85 Cutlass. Inside, there's sports car dash, foam-padded bucket seats, and an optional center control console. And there are 3 models to choose from: new Holiday Coupe, Sports Coupe, and Sassy Convertible. That's F-85 Cutlass. Bob Campbell's Western Olds, where the action is for 64.
So get behind the wheel of a Campbell Oldsmobile. Go to Bob Campbell's Western Olds.
Back to the news.
President Kennedy is scheduled 3 major speeches in Texas today at Fort Worth, Dallas, and Austin. The president and his wife spent the night at Hotel Texas after getting a warm welcome from crowds in 3 cities yesterday. They were cheered by thousands in Fort Worth last night when they arrived from Houston and San Antonio. In addition to an address at a Fort Worth Chamber of Commerce breakfast this morning, the president has scheduled a public appearance downtown shortly before 9 a.m. Jack Brown reports.
President Kennedy's parking lot speech is still 50 minutes away, but several hundred persons have already gathered to hear him. They're wearing raincoats and holding umbrellas, but the rain has stopped. Inside, in the Grand Ballroom, some 2,000 persons are in their seats for Mr. Kennedy's second speech. That will begin around 9:10. The breakfast menu called for eggs, 4,200 of them, Virginia ham, 65 big ones, 700 pounds of potatoes, 80 pounds of coffee, 72 gallons of orange juice, and an undetermined number of Parker House rolls. There's still no word on the subject of President Kennedy's breakfast speech. At the present time, Jimmy Ravito's combo is providing background music. The crowd is still coming in. People are being seated by the ushers, which includes TCU football coach Abe Martin. The head table is decked out with sprays of flowers gladiolas, carnations, and something I can't recognize from here. Mr. and Mrs. Kennedy spent the night in Suite 850, a suite that has been outfitted with artwork from the French school, which Mrs. Kennedy prefers. The suite's gold carpet has been cleaned half a dozen times in the last few days. Every time they get it cleaned, cameramen plead for a few more pictures, and in getting them, they track dirt and mud on the carpet. 6 young co-eds from Carter Riverside High School apparently were among the first to show up this morning. They stationed themselves outside the hotel at 5 o'clock. After Mr. Kennedy's breakfast speech, he will motorcade to Carswell Air Force Base, where Air Force One will fly him over to Love Field in Dallas. This is Jack Brown reporting from the Grand Ballroom of the Hotel Texas.